the Puma Deviate Nitro and the Hoka One One Mach 4. Both of these shoes are fantastic daily trainers with a special emphasis on fast long runs. But which one is the better long run shoe? It's time to lace them up and put them to the test. .53 miles, 7 minutes, 55 seconds per mile, 156 beats per minute, or at least that's the number that I got for the heart rate for today. I know that the first couple of miles were a little bit off from the heart rate monitor tracing that I had for today. It was a little bit chilly and I was wearing a pack, and I think that caused some interference in some of those early miles. But in any event, I had a fantastic long run with a substantial chunk of marathon effort miles in the Hoka One One Mach 4. And last week I ran the exact same workout in the Puma Deviate Nitro, 4 miles easy, 10 miles at marathon effort, and then a couple of strides before a cool down. So I can compare both of these shoes on those same workouts head to head. Now, before I give you my thoughts on these two shoes, I do want to go over some disclosures. The Puma Deviate Nitro is a pair of shoes that I purchased myself, but the Hoka Mach 4 was a pair of shoes that was sent to me by Hoka for the purpose of review. But in either case, no one is paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in a versus battle. And no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Puma Deviate Nitro and the Hoka Mach 4 in a long run battle. Let's talk about the Deviate Nitro first. With the Puma Deviate Nitro, we've got a 32 millimeter stack height shoe in the heel with an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 24 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. And the midsole here is comprised of a couple of things. First, we've got a heel clip in the back for a little bit of stability. I believe this is a piece of TPU that's in here to make this nitro foam that is new, something that we've been seeing in 2021, at least new from Puma. And also in this midsole, we have what Puma is calling the Inno plate. That's the name for that carbon fiber plate. You can see it in the little window here through the outsole. There's a carbon fiber plate in this shoe. Even though it's not technically a marathon racer, it is designed to help you for those marathon training sessions by putting a carbon fiber plate in what is otherwise pretty much a daily training setup. On the upper, we've got a mesh upper that's very comfortable. There's a gusseted tongue with a minimal amount of padding. And then around on the heel cup, there's not a ton of structure in terms of the heel, but we do have some substantial bumper pads along the sides of the ankle to keep everything in place. On the outsole, we've got pretty much a full coverage of rubber on the outsole. It's what Puma is calling Puma Grip, and it definitely works. This entire package comes in at a slightly heavy weight of 9.4 ounces. Moving over to the Mach 4, what we have is a 35 millimeter stack height shoe with a 5 millimeter drop, giving us 30 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot with a dual layer foam. It's that Pro Fly system where the upper layer is a softer, more cushioned material, and the outer layer is a little bit more firm, and it is a rubberized EVA that can then do away with needing any rubber on the outsole at all. There's a little window in here so you can see the cutout for what is not a carbon fiber plate, but is actually just that softer layer of that Pro Fly kind of dual foam system. Up top, there is a very comfortable mesh upper. This is probably one of the most comfortable uppers that I've run in from Hoka for sure, and maybe from any daily trainer so far in 2021. The tongue is lightly padded and perforated, also a gusseted tongue to help keep it in place. And around back, you've got an Achilles flare that is pretty generously padded. It doesn't look like there's a ton of padding in here, but there's a lot of padding in here, making it very comfortable to run in. There is a pretty substantial heel clip that is kind of outlined by this reflective gray stripe as well. This entire package comes in at a much lighter weight of 8.0 ounces. So what is it like to run in each of these shoes? Now I'll kind of go over how they're both similar because both of these shoes have very similar use cases and for the most part have very similar strengths as well. But I'll also talk about if there's any differences along the way, which one I think is better. The first thing that I'll talk about is both of these shoes provide very cushioned rides. I think both of these shoes excel at the long run. Both of these foams do a fantastic job of absorbing a lot of the impact that you're going to be getting from those longer road miles that you're going to be putting in as you start training for those half marathons and marathons. I will say though that in terms of softness, I really enjoy this top layer of midsole foam that's going on in the Mach 4. I feel like it's a very forgiving material and it definitely feels good underfoot. And as far as this kind of ground contact EVA goes, you're still getting some responsiveness as well. So you're not just sinking into like a marshmallow of softness. The foam absorbs the impact of your foot and then you spring right off because of that outer layer of the midsole foam. What ends up happening is a very forgiving foot strike with this shoe, very comfortable to ride in. It's not to say that the Deviate Nitro foam isn't a comfortable ride, but I feel like with all Nitro foams, I don't love them quite as much on like super easy days, recovery days, because that Nitro foam tends to be a little bit denser until you start picking up the pace. And speaking of paces, both of these shoes are really good at just general, everyday, easy paces, but they love being at moderate paces. The shoes just do a really good job of getting to marathon effort and staying there. Now, I'm not saying that they're the fastest at marathon effort, but when I'm putting in that level of effort, that's where I feel like I'm hitting the sweet spot in each of these shoes. Both of the shoes, the foam tends to get a little livelier, a little bit more interesting, and it definitely lets you keep going for those longer sustained efforts. Neither of these shoes is quite like the sprint shoe. I wouldn't bring either of these shoes to the track, but I will say that for the moderate efforts, the marathon efforts, I prefer the Deviate Nitro foam. But when it comes to doing strides, I prefer the Mach 4. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with the midsole foam so much. I think that has more to do with the fit of the upper. I feel like both of these shoes are very comfortable uppers. Some of the best daily trainer uppers that I've worn so far this year. Super comfortable and almost zero complaints on either side. But when it comes to picking up the pace, I feel like there's a looseness in the heel in the Deviate Nitro that I can't ever completely correct. And these bumper pads, I don't know if they're too low or they're too far forward. I'm not sure what it is, but they're not doing the job. And so everything feels just very sloppy, especially once I start picking up the pace. And when my toe off is getting a little bit more aggressive, that's where I feel like I'm feeling a lot of play in the back of this shoe. Overall, I'm not gonna complain too much about it because doing strides is not what this Deviate Nitro is about. This shoe is about running those marathon efforts, those moderate efforts, sustained highway cruising speeds. That's where this shoe shines. And at those speeds, I don't really notice any problem with the heel. It's just when I'm trying to pick up the pace, that's when I really notice a lot of the play. And I don't notice any of that play when I'm in the Mach 4. I love the way that this Achilles flare works and the amount of padding that's in here is really nice. Helps keep everything just very secure without being clamped down in an uncomfortable way. The close packing of the eyelets I do feel like allows for a lot of dialing in terms of where you need this shoe to be snug. And then there's a decent amount of room in the toe box in this shoe as well. Not gonna be the roomiest toe box of all shoes you'll find on the market, but it's not gonna be uncomfortably snug. Everything just kind of really works for me very well on this Hoka Mach 4 upper. Even when I'm getting to faster paces, I'm still feeling a lot of that comfort is all still staying right there. It's all still staying very secure. The one area that these two shoes are very different and probably couldn't be more opposite is when you start looking at the outsoles. The Deviate Nitro has a full layer of rubber coverage and the Hoka Mach 4 has 0 level of rubber coverage. And what I ended up finding is that, at least for the conditions that I was running in today, where it was mostly dry out there, but I'm running by the lakefront, and sometimes when the waves come up, they're throwing water up along the lakefront path. And I love running through the water. It's one of my favorite things to do. And today I found myself with the Mach 4 running sometimes through a couple of inches of water, and I forgot that I was in a no rubber outsole. So I didn't feel like the water caused any slipperiness, and I felt like I was able to run just fine through all that water. I didn't have quite as much water to run through in the Deviate Nitro, but I had a lot of other kind of wet conditions that I've run through in this shoe before. And I do feel like this Puma grip definitely does a fantastic job of making sure that I have very secure footing. So while I was today running on concrete that had water on it, and I didn't really find a noticeable difference at marathon effort in either of these shoes, regardless of the fact that they're very different in their approach to using rubber as a means for providing traction, I do feel like that I would feel much more confident if I was on other surfaces that were wet, such as dirt, such as grassy, hilly terrain. I'd much rather be in something that has at least a little bit of rubber on it, like the Deviate Nitro, and this Puma grip definitely is very grippy. So with all that being said, which of these two is going to be the champion for me? If I could put these two shoes together, if I could take the upper of the Mach 4 and put it on the midsole of the Puma Deviate Nitro, that shoe would definitely win in a battle. But since I can't do that, I'm going to give the crown today to the Deviate Nitro. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the problems that I do have with the heel are pretty minor and generally don't come up with the way that this shoe is intended to be used. The other thing is that I think the carbon fiber plate finally starts to make sense to me now once you start going on some longer sustained efforts. What I found was with the Mach 4, when I was deeper into that 10-mile chunk of marathon miles, I felt like while the shoe was very forgiving in terms of impact on how my foot landed, in terms of being very efficient and getting speed out of the shoe at the level of effort that I was putting in, I felt like I had to be a little bit more precise and a little bit more deliberate in terms of how I was landing. If there was a time where I kind of stopped paying as close attention to how my foot was landing and how my foot was moving through the gait cycle, I felt like the speed, even though the effort was still there, the speed started to taper off just a little bit, and then I kind of had to course correct and get myself back into alignment and back working in proper form. With the Deviate Nitro, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure, but it felt like it was a lot more forgiving when I was deep into a 10-mile stretch of marathon miles. I felt like I could kind of land on it almost however my foot ended up landing on it, but because of that nitro foam and the way that nitro foams behave once you pick up the pace, and because of that carbon fiber plate that's in here, I feel like that was kind of correcting a lot of my errors for me, and I felt like I was still able to keep moving at a pretty quick pace per amount of effort that I was putting in. I'm not going to say that one shoe was more effortless than the other, but I felt like I was getting more efficiency with more consistency from the Deviate Nitro. I felt like the technological features of the Deviate Nitro could pick up the slack, so to speak, when my mental focus would momentarily lapse. So that's why I'm picking the Deviate Nitro to win this battle. If you have any questions about either of these two shoes, feel free to put them down in the comments down below. I'd love to talk to you guys about it more down there. Or better yet, please feel free to stop by the live stream that I do just about every day on YouTube, 3 p.m. Central Time. I'd love to be able to talk to you guys about it in the chat there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?